All right, hello and welcome to Chapter 8. Chapter 8, we're going to learn about something called classes and objects. And this is a pretty huge topic, to be honest. It's maybe one of our last really big topics we got to talk about. We've talked about like methods and variables and loops and ifs. But Java is actually called object-oriented programming. And that's because when we organize our code, so far we've done it with like a main method and then calling little sub methods. But in Java, there's sort of a different approach to programming called classes and objects. Okay, and this is pretty tough. But what we're going to do to start off on Chapter 8 is our goals are just to understand the difference between like a class and an object. I'll use that language a lot. Objects are also sometimes called instances. So I'll put that vocab here. Like you make a class and then you make instances of that class, or another name for object. And so yeah, I guess that's what this says. We're going to create a class and then make an instance of that class. All right, so here we go. The idea is that a class is like a blueprint for making something. So like we've actually made classes a lot. When you type like public class, right? And what we're going to start to do is make one, say, like called person, right? And so what person will represent is just like what do we want to keep track of for a person, okay? And so usually these classes I know ours have been different so far, but we're going to start to make classes that have like data, which is going to be called like instance variables. Okay, and then we're going to be able to manipulate that data using methods. All right, so methods is like interacts with the data. Okay, and the methods are also sort of like what a person can do, like their actions, I guess, would be another way to think of it. Right, so if you think about a human, like a person, we have data, right? We have a first name, a last name, an address, an age, a height, a weight, right? And oftentimes that data changes, all right? And so in our person class, we would have all that data, but then we'd also have like methods like add a year or lose 5 pounds or change your last name. Maybe they get married, they're going to change their last name. So we'd make a method called like change last name and then change the data for this person. Okay, and so one of the things that I think is kind of tricky is that's called a class, and when you build the class, you don't specify any of the data. You just say what data you want to have, right? So basically, we're going to have in person, we're going to have like string like first name, but we're not going to initialize it, right? And then we're going to have like another one, maybe say like int age, but again, you're not going to initialize it, right? So the class is just like what data and methods we want to have for the person. And then when we actually make a specific person, that's going to be called an object or an instance. Okay, so this is the blueprint. And then once we build the blueprint, we're going to go into our code, right, in a different main program or something. And we're going to type like person 1 or something. And then we're going to make a new person. Okay, so just like we do with like scanner, like we make a new scanner, right? That's called an instance of the scanner class. So we can do the same thing here. We're like, once we have the class for person, we can make an object, right? And then we can start to interact with it, right? And we're going to use those dot methods again. We're going to call like person1 dot set name or something. We'd give them a name like Billy. I'm just going to do Bill, see if I can get it to fit. Shoot, still didn't fit. But once you have created it, right, then you can start to interact with it using the dot methods. Okay, and again, this would be an example of an instance or an object. The class is just the blueprint, and then the object is the actual person that you make, right? And you could make more than one person, right? This is person one, and we're gonna make this a little smaller so it fits better, right? But then we could make more than one person, right? We could certainly make as many as we want. So we could do like person two, if I could spell it right, equals new person, right? And then it would have a different set of data. It'd have a different first name and a different age. Okay, and so another way to think of this is like a class is like your own custom variable type, right? So far we've had like a lot of variables like scanner and string and int and double, all right? But with objects, you're making your own type. That's what the class is I'm making my own special variable type. And what do I want to track? What data do I want to have? What methods do I want to have? Right? And then once you create the class, then you can make little person variables, just like you make string variables and int variables and double variables. And it's the exact same thing. This is the type. This is the name of the variable. And then for an object is like a reference type variable. So you do new, and then you do the name of it again. And then this will be eventually any input parameters, which we'll talk about later. But basically, once you create the class, you can make your own little variable objects from that class definition, right? And so we're going to start to do an example of that here in a second.